The stars looked different out here. Captain Kang Do-hyun stood at the observation window of the horizon and stared into the endless black. They were far from Earth now, farther than any human ship had ever traveled. The mission was simple: explore, document, and return home. But space had other plans. "Captain, we have something on the sensors," said Shin Unji from her station. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were wide. "It's big. Really big." Do-hyun walked over to her screen and looked at the readings. His stomach dropped. The object was massive, at least 50 times larger than the horizon, and it was moving toward them. "Can you identify it?" he asked. Unji shook her head. "Nothing in our database matches this design. It's not human." The bridge fell silent. Every crew member understood what this meant. First contact. The moment humanity had dreamed about and feared for centuries. It was happening now, and they were alone. Park Tae-woo, the head of security, stepped forward. His hand rested on his weapon out of habit. "Should we run, Captain?" Do-hyun considered the question. The alien ship was faster than them. He could see that from the sensor data. Running would only make them look weak, or worse, like prey. "No," he said. "We stay. We talk." The alien vessel grew larger on their main screen. It was beautiful in a terrifying way. The ship looked like it was made of black crystal, with sharp angles and glowing blue lines running across its surface. It moved through space like a predator, smooth and confident. Then the message came. The communication screen flickered to life, and Do-hyun saw an alien face for the first time in human history. The creature was tall and thin, with a body covered in what looked like dark, purple armor. But it was not armor. It was the creature's skin, or perhaps its shell. The alien had large black eyes that reflected the light like polished stone. Its mouth was small, and when it spoke, the translator took a moment to catch up. "Unknown vessel. You have entered the territory of the Valari Empire. Identify yourselves or be destroyed." The voice was cold and sharp. There was no warmth in it, no curiosity, just a command. Do-hyun stepped forward and faced the screen. He kept his voice steady. "I am Captain Kang Do-hyun of the Earth vessel Horizon. We are explorers from a planet called Earth. We mean no harm. We did not know this was your territory." The alien tilted its head slightly. For a long moment, it said nothing. Then, it spoke again. "Earth. We have no record of this world. Your species is unknown to us. We're new to this part of space," Do-hyun admitted. "We're still learning." The alien's eyes narrowed. "You are small. Your ship is primitive. How did you travel so far?" Before Do-hyun could answer, another figure appeared on the screen. This one was different. Larger, more decorated. The new alien wore what looked like a crown made of silver crystals, and its shell was a deeper shade of purple, almost black. When it moved, the first alien immediately stepped aside and bowed its head. "I am Queen Sarath of the Valari Empire," the new figure said. Her voice was deeper, more powerful. "I rule over 1,000 worlds and 10 billion souls, and I have never seen creatures like you. One. I rule." Do-hyun felt the weight of her gaze. This was not just a captain or a commander. This was a ruler. A queen who controlled more than he could imagine. "Your Majesty," he said, bowing his head slightly. "We are honored to meet you." The queen did not seem impressed. She studied him the way a scientist might study an insect. "You have no natural armor," she observed. "No protective shell. Your skin is soft and exposed. How do you survive?" It was a strange question. But Do-hyun understood it. The Valari were covered in hard shells. To them, soft skin must seem like a death sentence. "We survive through other means," he said carefully. "Tools, medicine, intelligence." Queen Sarath made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Tools can be taken, Medicine can fail. Intelligence is common among the stars. But the body is what matters. The body determines if a species is strong or weak. She leaned closer to the screen. And your bodies are very, very weak. Do-hyun felt anger rise in his chest, but he pushed it down. This was not the time for pride. We may look weak to you, Your Majesty, but humanity has survived for thousands of years. We have faced ice ages, plagues, wars, and disasters. We are still here. The Queen's expression did not change. Words. Every weak species has words. I want to see for myself what you truly are. She turned to the first alien. Commander Neth, bring the humans aboard. I wish to examine them. Commander Neth bowed. Yes, my queen. The screen went dark. Yoon Ji-won, the ship's doctor, stepped up beside Do-hyun. Her face was pale. They want to examine us? Like animals? Like specimens, Eunji added quietly. Do-hyun looked at his crew. There were only 20 humans on the horizon. Against the Valari warship, they had no chance of fighting. But maybe, just maybe, they had a chance of proving themselves. We go, he said. We show them who we are, and we survive. That's what humans do. Taewoo crossed his arms. And if they decide we're too weak to live? Do-hyun met his gaze. Then we prove them wrong. An hour later, a Valari shuttle docked with the horizon. Do-hyun, Ji-won, Eunji, and Taewoo were escorted aboard by 4 Valari soldiers. The soldiers were tall and silent. Their shells made soft clicking sounds as they walked. The inside of the Valari ship was cold and dark. The walls were smooth black crystal, and the air smelled faintly of metal. Everything about the place felt alien and unwelcoming. They were taken through long corridors and past countless Valari, who stopped to stare. Do-hyun could feel their eyes on him. He heard whispers in a language he could not understand, but the tone was clear. Mockery, disbelief, disgust. Finally, they reached a massive chamber. At the far end sat Queen Serath, on a throne made of the same black crystal as the ship. She looked down at the humans as they were brought before her. So small, she said softly. Commander Neth stood beside her, his arms crossed. They are prey animals, my queen. They wandered too far from their world, and now they have found predators. Queen Serath raised one hand, and Neth fell silent. She studied the humans for a long moment. Perhaps, she said, but there is something in this one's eyes. She pointed at Do-hyun. Something that does not match his weak body. Do-hyun. Do-hyun said nothing. He simply stood tall and met her gaze. The queen smiled, but there was no warmth in it. We shall see what you are made of, human. We shall see. They stood in rows along the walls, their crystalline shells gleaming under the soft blue lights. All of them watched the humans with the same expression. Cold curiosity, mixed with disgust. Do-hyun stood at the center of the chamber with his 3 crew members. He kept his back straight and his face calm. He could feel Ji-won trembling slightly beside him, but she did not show her fear on her face. Eunji was busy studying everything around her, her scientist's mind already working. Taewoo looked like he wanted to fight every alien in the room. Queen Serath rose from her throne and walked down the steps toward them. She moved with the grace of someone who had never known fear. Her dark shell caught the light as she circled the humans slowly, examining them from every angle. Healer Vin, she said without looking away from Do-hyun. What do your scans tell us? A smaller Valari stepped forward. This one had lighter coloring and carried a device that looked like a flat crystal tablet. My queen, the results are remarkable. These creatures have no exoskeleton. Their skin provides almost no protection against physical damage. They have no ability to regrow lost limbs. Their bones are dense, but brittle, compared to our own. The nobles whispered among themselves. The sounds of clicking and hissing filled the chamber. Healer Vin continued. They have only one heart, which pumps blood through a closed system. If a major blood vessel is damaged, they will bleed out within minutes. Their internal organs have no backup systems. Damage to any major organ will result in death. Queen Sereth stopped in front of Unji and leaned close to study her face. And their senses? Poor by our standards, Vin replied. Their eyes can only see a narrow range of light. Their hearing is limited. They cannot sense electromagnetic fields or temperature changes at a distance. Commander Neth laughed. It was an ugly sound, like rocks grinding together. They are blind, deaf, and soft. How did they ever leave their planet? Some of the nobles laughed with him. The sound echoed through the chamber. Do-Hyun felt his hands tighten into fists, but he forced himself to relax. He would not give them the satisfaction of seeing his anger. Queen Sereth raised a hand, and the laughter stopped immediately. She turned to face Do-Hyun directly. Your healer. She carries medical supplies. Yes? Do-Hyun nodded. She does. Show me. Ji-won stepped forward slowly. She opened the small medical bag she carried and laid out its contents on the floor. There were bandages, syringes, small bottles of medicine, surgical tools, and a device for checking vital signs. The Valari nobles crowded closer to look. Their expressions ranged from confusion to horror. What is this? Queen Sereth picked up a syringe with 2 fingers, holding it like it might bite her. A weapon? No, Your Majesty, Ji-won said. Her voice was quiet but steady. It is a tool for injecting medicine into the body. When a human is sick or injured, we sometimes need to put medicine directly into the blood. You pierce your own skin? Vin asked, sounding genuinely shocked. On purpose? Yes. It helps the medicine work faster. The healer looked at the other items. He picked up a scalpel and examined its sharp edge. And this? A cutting tool, Ji-won explained. For surgery. Sometimes we need to cut into the body to repair damage inside. The chamber fell completely silent. Every Valari stared at the small blade as if it were the most terrifying thing they had ever seen. You cut yourselves open, Queen Sereth said slowly. To heal. When necessary, yes. The queen looked at Ji-won for a long moment. Then she looked at the scalpel. Then, back at Ji-won. Your species is insane. Commander Neth stepped forward, his voice dripping with contempt. My queen, we have seen enough. These creatures are prey animals. They have no natural defenses, no useful abilities, no strength. They are not worthy of an alliance. They are barely worthy of study. He pointed at Do-Hyun. Look at them. They shake. They sweat. Their bodies leak fluids when they are afraid or stressed. They are disgusting and weak. We should send them back to their primitive world and forget we ever found them. Several nobles made sounds of agreement. Queen Sereth did not respond immediately. She walked back to her throne and sat down, looking at the humans from above. Her dark eyes gave nothing away. You say you have survived for thousands of years, she said to Do-Hyun. You say your species is strong, but everything I see tells me you are fragile. One blow could kill you. One cut could make you bleed until you die. You feel pain. You get sick. You grow old and weak. She leaned forward. Give me one reason why I should not consider you beneath my notice. Do-Hyun took a deep breath. This was his moment. He had to find the right words. Your Majesty, he began. You are right. Our bodies are not strong like yours. We have no shells. We have no natural weapons. When we are cut, we bleed. When we are hurt, we feel pain. All of this is true. He paused and looked around the chamber at all the aliens watching him. But you ask how we survived. The answer is simple. We refused to die. When the ice came and covered our world, we wrapped ourselves in animal skins and kept going. When plagues killed millions of us, we learned medicine and saved those who remained. When we fought wars against each other, the survivors rebuilt and started again. He met the queen's gaze. We are not strong because of our bodies. We are strong because of what we do with them. We endure. We adapt. We refuse to give up. That is what makes us dangerous. Queen Sereth tilted her head. For a moment, something flickered in her eyes. Interest, perhaps. Or doubt. Commander Neth scoffed. Pretty words from a weak creature. Then give us a chance to show you our actions, Do-hyun said. The queen considered this. The chamber was silent, as everyone waited for her decision. Finally, she spoke. You are interesting, Captain. I will admit that. But interesting is not the same as useful. And useful is not the same as equal. She waved her hand dismissively. You will be confined to an observation deck. My scientists will study you. We will learn everything about your species. And then, I will decide what to do with you. Do-hyun felt his heart sink, but he kept his face calm. We are not animals to be studied, Your Majesty. No, she agreed. Animals are often more impressive. She smiled coldly. Take them away. Take them away. The Valari guards moved forward and surrounded the humans. There was no point in fighting. They were outnumbered and outgunned. As they were led out of the chamber, Do-hyun heard Commander Neth speak to the queen. They will break easily, my queen. Their bodies and their spirits. Give them a few days in confinement, and they will beg to be released. Perhaps, Queen Sereth replied. But that one, the captain, he has something in his eyes that troubles me. Watch him carefully. Of course, my queen. The doors closed behind them, and the humans were taken into the depths of the alien ship. They did not know what would happen next. But Do-hyun made a silent promise to himself. They would not break. They would not beg. They would show these aliens exactly what humanity was capable of, no matter what it cost them. 3 days passed slowly on the Valari ship. The humans were kept in a large room with transparent walls. Valari scientists came and went, taking scans, asking questions, and making notes on their crystal tablets. They treated the humans like zoo animals, fascinating but inferior. Do-hyun spent most of his time watching and learning. He noticed how the Valari moved, how they spoke to each other, how they reacted to things. He was building a picture of their society in his mind. Understanding them might be the key to survival. Unji had become friendly with healer Vin, who visited often to study human biology. The healer was less hostile than the others. He seemed genuinely curious, rather than disgusted. He asked questions about human medicine, human food, and human sleep. He was especially interested in dreams, which the Valari apparently did not have. Taewoo paced the room like a caged tiger. He hated being trapped. He hated being watched. More than anything, he hated being called weak. Every time a Valari guard looked at him with contempt, his jaw tightened. Ji-won tried to keep everyone calm. She checked their health, made sure they ate the strange food the Valari provided, and talked to anyone who seemed stressed. She was the heart of their small group, keeping them together when everything felt hopeless. On the 4th day, everything changed. The observation deck where they were kept had a large window that looked out into space. It was beautiful in its own way. A view of stars and distant nebulas that humans had never seen before. Do-hyun often stood there, thinking about Earth and wondering if they would ever see it again. He was standing at that window when he heard the sound. It started as a low hum, almost too quiet to notice. Then it grew louder, becoming a high-pitched whine. The floor beneath his feet vibrated. What is that? Ji-won asked, standing up from where she had been sitting. Before anyone could answer, alarms began to blare throughout the ship. Red lights flashed. The Valari guards outside their room suddenly looked panicked. They shouted to each other in their own language, their voices sharp with fear. Then Do-hyun saw it through the window. A small rock, no bigger than a fist, was hurtling toward the ship at incredible speed. A micrometeorite, In the vastness of space, such small objects moved faster than bullets, and this one was heading straight for them. "Get down!" Do-hyun shouted. The impact was violent. The window cracked but held. However, the wall beside it was not so lucky. A section of the outer hull tore open with a deafening screech. Air began rushing out of the room, pulled into the vacuum of space. Emergency barriers started to close, trying to seal the breach, but they were slow. Too slow. Debris flew everywhere. Chunks of metal and crystal spun through the air like deadly projectiles. The humans threw themselves to the ground, covering their heads. Eunji was closest to the breach. She stumbled as the air pulled at her, dragging her toward the hole in the wall. Her eyes went wide with terror. Do-hyun did not think. He simply moved. He launched himself across the room, grabbed Eunji by the arm, and threw her toward the others. She landed hard, but safe, rolling away from the breach, but the motion cost him his balance. As he turned to follow her, a jagged piece of metal, part of the torn hull, came spinning through the air. He saw it coming but could not move fast enough. The metal struck his left arm. It did not just hit him, it cut through him. The sharp edge sliced through his uniform, through his skin, through the muscle beneath. It scraped against bone before finally stopping, embedded in his forearm. Pain exploded through Do-hyun's body. White-hot, blinding pain that made his vision blur. He heard himself cry out. A sound torn from his throat without his permission. Blood sprayed from the wound. Bright, red human blood, so different from anything the Valari had ever seen. It splattered across the floor, the walls, and his own clothes. It dripped from the metal shard still stuck in his arm. The emergency barriers finally closed. The breach was sealed. The air stopped rushing out. Silence fell over the room, broken only by the sound of the alarms and Do-hyun's ragged breathing. He looked down at his arm. The wound was terrible. He could see the white of his bone through the torn flesh. Blood was everywhere, pumping out with each beat of his heart. The pain was beyond anything he had ever felt, but he did not fall. He did not pass out. He stayed on his feet. Ji-won was at his side in seconds. "Captain! Oh God! Your arm!" "I know," Do-hyun said through gritted teeth. "I can feel it." Tae-woo and Eunji rushed over. Eunji was crying, apologizing over and over. "You saved me. You pushed me out of the way. This is my fault. Not your fault." Do-hyun managed to say, "Just bad luck." Oh. Ji-won was already opening her medical bag. Her hands moved quickly, pulling out bandages and antiseptic. "I need to stop the bleeding. This is going to hurt." "It already hurts," Do-hyun said with a weak laugh. "Do what you need to do." She grabbed the metal shard with both hands. "On 3, 1, 2. She pulled it out on 2, not giving him time to tense up. The pain was incredible. Do-hyun's vision went white, and for a moment he thought he would pass out. But he did not. He forced himself to stay conscious, to stay standing. Blood poured from the open wound. Ji-won pressed bandages against it, trying to slow the flow. "I need to close this. I need needle and thread." The door to the observation deck burst open. Valari guards rushed in, weapons drawn. Behind them came Healer Vin, his crystal tablet clutched in his hands. They all stopped when they saw Do-hyun. The human captain stood in a pool of his own blood. His arm was torn open, the wound gaping and terrible. His face was pale, covered in sweat. His body was shaking, but he was standing. His eyes were open. He was conscious. Healer Vin made a sound that Do-hyun had never heard from a Valari before. It was something between a gasp and a whisper, full of disbelief. "Impossible," the healer said. "That wound would kill one of us in seconds. The pain alone would send us into shock." More Valari gathered at the door, drawn by the commotion. They stared at the human, at the blood, at the horrible injury. None of them could understand what they were seeing. How was he still alive? How was he still awake? How was he still standing? Do-hyun looked at them. Despite the agony, despite the blood loss, he managed to speak. Are you going to just watch? He asked. His voice was rough with pain. Or is someone going to help my doctor save my arm? The Valari guards looked at each other, uncertain. They had been told that humans were weak. They had been told that humans would break easily. But this human had just been nearly torn apart, and he was asking for help like he had merely stubbed his toe. Healer Vin stepped forward, his earlier disgust replaced by something else. Fascination, respect, fear. I will help, he said. But I need to understand. How are you doing this? How are you not dead? Do-hyun smiled, and there was blood on his teeth. Then his legs finally gave out, and he collapsed into Taewoo's waiting arms. But even then, even as darkness crept into the edges of his vision, he did not lose consciousness. Humans were stubborn like that. The news of the accident spread through the Valari ship like fire. Within an hour, every soldier, scientist, and noble on board knew what had happened. A human had been injured, badly injured, and somehow, impossibly, he had survived. Queen Sarath arrived at the observation deck 20 minutes after the breach was sealed. She walked through the door with Commander Neth at her side, her face showing no emotion. But when she saw the scene before her, she stopped. The room looked like a battlefield. There was blood everywhere, more blood than she had ever seen from a living creature. Red streaks covered the floor. Red handprints marked the walls. Red pools had gathered in the corners where the emergency drainage had not yet cleaned. And in the center of it all sat the human captain, Kang Do-hyun. He was on the floor now, his back against the wall. His left arm was wrapped in white bandages that were already turning red as blood soaked through. The human doctor, Ji-won, knelt beside him, carefully threading a needle. Your Majesty, Commander Neth said quietly. Perhaps we should— Silence, the Queen commanded. She walked forward slowly, her eyes fixed on the human. Do-hyun looked up at her. His face was the color of ash. Dark circles had formed under his eyes, and his entire body trembled slightly. But his gaze was steady, clear, aware. Your Majesty, he said, his voice rough but coherent. Sorry for the mess. Queen Sarath did not respond immediately. She was staring at his arm, at the bandages, at the blood still seeping through. Then, she looked at Ji-won. What are you doing? She demanded. Ji-won did not stop working. I am closing the wound, Your Majesty. I need to stitch the tissue back together so it can heal. Stitch? You mean you are sewing his skin? Like fabric? Yes. It is a common medical procedure for humans. The Queen turned to Healer Vin, who stood nearby with his tablet. Explain this to me. His arm was torn open. I can see the damage even through the bandages. How is he conscious? Vin looked at his readings, then at the human, then back at his readings. I cannot explain it, my queen. By all logic, he should be dead. At minimum, he should be in deep shock, unconscious and unresponsive. But it didn't. No, my queen. It didn't. Queen Sarath crouched down in front of Do-hyun, bringing herself to his eye level. She studied his face like she was seeing him for the first time. You should be dead, she said. So I've been told. The pain you are feeling right now should have shut down your brain. Your body should have given up. Do-hyun laughed softly, then winced as the movement jarred his arm. Humans are stubborn. We don't give up easily. The Queen shook her head slowly. This can't be real, she whispered. This can't be real. This can't be real. She reached out and touched the bandage on his arm, gently, like she was afraid he might break. When she pulled her hand back, there was red blood on her fingers. She stared at it. Red, she said. Your blood is red, iron-based. Unji explained from nearby. It carries oxygen through our bodies. The Queen stood up and turned to face Ji-won. Continue your work. I want to watch. Ji-won nodded and pulled back the bandage slightly. The wound beneath was horrific. The metal had cut deep, slicing through layers of muscle. The bone was visible in places, white against the red of torn flesh. Several Valari guards turned away, unable to look. Even Commander Neth, who had seen countless battles, seemed disturbed, but Queen Sereth did not look away. She watched as Jiwan carefully cleaned the wound, removing small fragments of metal and debris. She watched as the human doctor threaded her needle with steady hands. She watched as that needle pierced human skin, pulling the edges of the wound together with small, precise stitches. And through it all, Do-hyun stayed awake. He talked. He even joked. "You know," he said to Jiwan, "this reminds me of the time I fell off my bike as a kid, tore up my knee pretty badly. My mother stitched it up at home because we couldn't afford the hospital." Jiwan smiled despite the stress. "Your mother was a brave woman." "She was. She taught me that pain is just information. It tells you something is wrong, but it doesn't control you unless you let it." Queen Sereth listened to this exchange in silence. She was trying to understand, but everything she saw contradicted everything she knew. The Valari were a proud species. Their shells protected them from most harm. They rarely bled, and when they did, the injuries were usually fatal. Pain was something to be avoided at all costs. Their entire society was built around the prevention of damage, but these humans lived differently. They expected damage. They planned for it. They had developed entire fields of medicine designed to fix broken bodies, and when they were hurt, they did not give up. They fought through the pain. It was terrifying. "Why don't you stop?" the queen finally asked. "Why don't you simply accept death when it comes?" Do-hyun looked at her with tired eyes. "Because giving up is not in our nature. Humans have always been prey on our world. We were not the biggest or the strongest. We had no claws, no fangs, no armor. But we survived anyway. How? By refusing to quit. By getting back up every time we were knocked down. By helping each other when one of us fell." He glanced at Unji. "I got hurt saving her. I would do it again, 100 times." Unji wiped tears from her eyes. "Captain." Queen Sereth was quiet for a long time. Finally, she spoke. "Among my people, sacrifice is rare. We value individual survival above all else. A Valari who threw themselves into danger to save another would be considered foolish. Among humans," Do-hyun replied, "they would be called a hero." The queen studied him. "You are dying. Slowly, but surely. Without proper medical care, you will not survive the night." Jiwan spoke up. "I can stabilize him, Your Majesty. But you're right. He needs more than I can provide with basic supplies." Commander Neth stepped forward. "My queen, surely you are not considering helping this creature? He is a specimen, nothing more." Queen Sereth raised her hand, and Neth fell silent. She looked at Do-hyun. At his pale face, his bloody arm, his steady eyes. She had called him weak. She had called his species fragile and worthless. But this creature had just survived something that would have killed any Valari. And he had done it without complaint, without begging, without losing his dignity. "Healer Vin," she said. "Yes, my queen, you will assist the human doctor. You will use whatever resources are necessary to save this man's life." Vin bowed. "As you command, my queen." Commander Neth could not contain himself. "My queen. Why? He is nothing. His species is nothing." Queen Sereth turned to face her commander. Her eyes were cold and hard. "He is not nothing," she said quietly. "He is something we have never encountered before. Something that refuses to die, no matter how much it bleeds. Something that saves others at the cost of itself." She paused. "Something that may be more dangerous than we ever imagined." She looked back at Do-hyun, and for the first time, there was something other than contempt in her expression. It might have been respect, Or, it might have been fear. "Save him," she ordered. "I have more questions for this human." Then she turned and walked out of the room, leaving Commander Neth staring after her with confusion and anger in his eyes. The first crack had appeared in the Valari's certainty, and it had been carved by human blood. 2 days after the accident, Do-hyun woke in a proper medical room. The Valari had moved him from the observation deck to their healing chambers, a place of soft blue light and humming machines. His arm was wrapped in clean bandages, and the pain had faded to a dull throb. Ji-won sat beside his bed, reading something on a Valari tablet. "Welcome back, Captain. You gave us quite a scare." "How long was I out?" "About 10 hours. The Valari medicine is impressive. They use some kind of regenerative gel on your wound. It won't heal completely, but it stopped the bleeding and prevented infection." Do-hyun looked at his arm. Through the bandages, he could feel the stitches Ji-won had placed. There would be scars, bad ones. But he was alive. "The others? Fine. Unji hasn't stopped thanking you. Taewoo wants to punch something, as usual. We're all just glad you made it." A soft sound came from the doorway. Do-hyun turned and saw Queen Sarath standing there, watching him. She was alone, without guards or advisors. Her dark eyes studied him with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. "Leave us," she said to Ji-won. It was not a request. Ji-won looked at Do-hyun, who nodded. She stood and bowed slightly to the queen before leaving the room. The door closed behind her, with a soft hiss. Queen Sarath walked to the chair Ji-won had left and sat down. She said nothing at first, just looked at Do-hyun like he was a puzzle she was trying to solve. "I have lived for 300 years, she finally said. "I have seen countless species rise and fall. I have watched empires crumble and new ones take their place. In all that time, I have never seen anything like what you did." Do-hyun shifted in the bed, trying to sit up straighter. "You mean getting hurt?" "I mean surviving. I mean staying conscious when your body was destroyed. I mean making jokes while your doctor sewed your flesh together." She shook her head. "My people would have died. Any Valari in your place would have simply stopped. Our bodies shut down when the damage is too great. It is a mercy. For humans, there is no shutdown," Do-hyun said. "We feel everything. Every bit of pain, every moment of suffering. We just learn to push through it. But why? What purpose does such suffering serve?" Do-hyun thought about the question. It was something he had never really considered before. Pain was just part of being human. You dealt with it and moved on. "I think it makes us stronger," he said slowly. "Not physically stronger, but mentally. When you've experienced real pain and survived it, you know you can survive almost anything. It builds something inside you. Determination, willpower, stubbornness." The queen leaned forward. "Tell me about your species. Not the biology, not the statistics. Tell me how you became what you are." So Do-hyun told her. He told her about Earth, about the beautiful blue planet where humans had evolved. He told her about the ice ages, when massive sheets of ice covered the land and temperatures dropped so low that most life died. Humans survived by wrapping themselves in animal skins and hiding in caves, burning fires to stay warm. He told her about the plagues, diseases that swept across continents and killed millions. The Black Death, smallpox, influenza. Each time, humanity was brought to the edge of extinction. Each time, they survived, learned, and came back stronger. He told her about wars. Terrible wars, where humans killed each other by the millions. World War I, World War II. Conflicts that should have ended their species, but they survived those too, and eventually learned to work together. He told her about persistence hunting, the ancient way humans caught prey. They could not run faster than other animals, and they had no claws or fangs, but they could run longer. They would chase an animal for hours, sometimes days, until the creature collapsed from exhaustion. Then they would kill it and eat. We are not the fastest, Do-hyun said. We are not the strongest. But we are the most persistent. We never give up. We never stop. We just keep going. Until we win. Or we die trying. Queen Sereth listened to all of this in silence. Her expression shifted as he spoke, moving from curiosity to something deeper. Something like awe. And your medicine, she said. Tell me about that, Do-hyun smiled. That's Jiwon's specialty, but I know the basics. We cut ourselves open to fix problems inside. We replace damaged organs with healthy ones, from other humans, or even machines. We use chemicals to kill diseases, even if those chemicals make us sick. We break our own bones and reset them to heal properly. You torture yourselves to heal. If that's what it takes, yes. The queen stood and walked to the window. Outside, stars drifted slowly past as the ship moved through space. Commander Neth thinks you are weak, she said. He believes your soft bodies make you prey. He has advised me to study you, learn your weaknesses, and then either enslave your species or destroy it. Do-hyun felt a chill run down his spine. And what do you think, Your Majesty? She turned to face him. I think he is a fool. I think you are the most dangerous species I have ever encountered. Dangerous? We have no natural weapons. You said so yourself. You have something better. You have will. You have determination. You have the ability to suffer unimaginable pain and keep fighting. She walked back to his bedside. My species avoids damage because damage kills us. But your species expects damage and plans for recovery. You are not afraid of being hurt. You are ready for it. She reached out and touched the bandage on his arm, gently. This wound will scar, she said. You will carry this mark for the rest of your life. I know. Does that bother you? Do-hyun looked at his arm and thought about it. The scar would be ugly. It would remind him of pain and fear and nearly dying. But it would also remind him of saving Yoonji, of surviving, of proving the Valari wrong. No, he said. Scars are proof that we survived. Every scar tells a story. This one says that I protected someone I cared about. I'm proud of it. N1. 41. N1. Queen Sereth withdrew her hand. Her expression was unreadable. You are a strange species, Captain Kang Do-hyun. You turn weakness into strength. You turn pain into pride. You turn scars into badges of honor. We do what we have to do, Your Majesty. That's all. She nodded slowly. Rest now. Recover your strength. I have much to think about. She walked to the door and paused with her hand on the frame. Captain, she said, without turning around. When you are healed, I would like you to tell me more about Earth, about your history, about your wars, and your plagues, and your persistence. I would be honored, Your Majesty. She nodded once and left, her footsteps echoing down the corridor. Do-hyun lay back in the bed and stared at the ceiling. Something had changed. He could feel it. The queen was no longer looking at him like a specimen. She was looking at him like an equal, or perhaps like a threat. Either way, it was progress. He closed his eyes and let sleep take him, dreaming of Earth and scars and the long road home. 1 week after the accident, Do-hyun was back on his feet. His arm was still wrapped in bandages, and Jiwon had forbidden him from using it too much. But he could walk, he could think, and most importantly, he could act if needed. The humans had been moved to better quarters. They were no longer prisoners. Not exactly, but they were not free either. Queen Sereth had ordered them treated with respect, much to Commander Neth's anger. The other Valari on the ship looked at them differently now. There was less contempt and more curiosity. Some even seemed nervous around them. Do-hyun was standing in their new quarters, looking out the window at the stars, when the attack came. It started with a violent shudder that knocked everyone off their feet. Alarms screamed through the ship. Red lights flashed. The sound of explosions echoed through the metal walls. Unji grabbed onto a table to steady herself. "What's happening?" Before anyone could answer, a Valari soldier burst through their door. It was one of the younger ones, barely more than a child by their standards. His shell was cracked in one place, and fear was clear in his eyes. "The Scorn," he gasped. "They've found us. We're under attack." Do-hyun had heard about the Scorn. They were another alien species, enemies of the Valari. Where the Valari were tall and elegant, the Scorn were short and brutal. They had gray, leathery skin, multiple arms, and teeth designed for tearing flesh. They raided other species for resources and slaves. "How many ships?" Do-hyun demanded. 5. They came out of nowhere. "Our shields are failing." Another explosion shook the ship. Through the window, Do-hyun could see energy beams flashing between vessels. The Valari were fighting back, but they were outnumbered. "They're boarding," the young soldier said, his voice cracked. "They're coming on board. We're going to die." Taewoo stepped forward. His eyes were sharp, his body tense. "Where are your weapons?" "The armory is 3 levels down, but take us there." The soldier stared at him. "You want to fight? But you're human." Taewoo grabbed him by the shoulders. "Listen to me. Either you take us to the weapons, or we all die anyway. Make a choice." The soldier looked at Do-hyun, who nodded. "Do it. We can help." They moved through the ship quickly, following the young Valari through corridors filled with smoke and chaos. Valari soldiers ran past them, heading toward the sounds of fighting. Some of them shouted at the humans to go back, to hide, to stay out of the way. Do-hyun ignored them all. The armory was a large room filled with weapons designed for Valari hands. Plasma rifles, energy blades, sonic disruptors. Taewoo grabbed a rifle and tested its weight. It was awkward, built for longer arms, but he made it work. The other humans armed themselves. Even Jiwon, who hated violence, took a small energy pistol. She looked at Do-hyun with fear in her eyes, but also determination. "I'm a doctor," she said. "I save lives. But today, I'll protect them too." Do-hyun picked up a rifle with his good hand. His injured arm throbbed, but he pushed the pain away. There would be time to hurt later. Now was the time to fight. They found the Scorn on the upper levels. The creatures were exactly as ugly as Do-hyun had imagined. Short, hunched bodies, covered in gray skin. 4 arms each, all ending in clawed hands. Mouths full of jagged teeth. Eyes that gleamed with cruel intelligence. They had already killed several Valari soldiers. The bodies lay broken on the ground, their beautiful shells shattered. The Scorn were laughing, a horrible clicking sound that echoed through the corridor. "Now," Do-hyun said. The humans opened fire. The first volley caught the Scorn by surprise. 3 of them fell immediately, their bodies torn apart by plasma fire. The others spun around, shocked to see new enemies. Then they saw what those enemies were. "Soft ones," one of the Scorn shouted. "Kill the soft ones. They will be easy meat." They charged. Taewoo stood his ground. He fired again and again, dropping Scorn with every shot. When one got too close, he used the rifle as a club, smashing it across the creature's face. The Scorn fell, but another took its place. Unji fought beside him, her smaller rifle spitting fire. She was terrified. Do-hyun could see it in her face, but she did not run. She stood and fought. Jiwon stayed back, picking off Scorn who tried to flank them. Her aim was not perfect, but it was good enough, and Do-hyun was everywhere. He fought with one arm, the rifle braced against his hip. Every shot was careful, precise. When the rifle's charge ran out, he grabbed an energy blade from a fallen Valari and kept fighting. A Scorn clawed his chest, tearing through his uniform and drawing blood. He ignored it and drove the blade through the creature's throat. Another Scorn grabbed his injured arm and squeezed. Pain exploded through Do-hyun's body. so intense that his vision went white. He heard himself scream, but he did not fall. He did not stop. He headbutted the scorn, breaking its nose, then kicked it away and stabbed it while it was stunned. The Valari soldiers watched in shock. These humans, these soft, weak creatures, were fighting like demons. They bled freely, red blood spraying across the walls. They took hits that would have killed a Valari. But they kept getting up. They kept fighting. They refused to die. Impossible, Commander Neth whispered. He had arrived with reinforcements and stood frozen at the end of the corridor. This is impossible. One of the scorn, the largest one, roared in frustration. Why won't you die? It screamed at Do-hyun. You're bleeding. You're broken. Just die. Do-hyun looked at the creature. His chest was bleeding. His arm was screaming in agony. He had cuts and bruises all over his body. But he was still standing. We don't die easy, he said. That's the thing about humans. We're too stupid to know when to quit, he charged. The fight was brutal. The scorn was stronger, faster, and had 4 arms to Do-hyun's 1 working arm. It hit him, clawed him, tried to tear him apart. Do-hyun took every blow and kept coming. He got inside the creature's guard and drove his blade up through its jaw and into its brain. The scorn fell. The remaining raiders looked at their dead leader, then at the bleeding human standing over the body. For a moment, no one moved. Then the scorn ran. They fled back toward their boarding ships, abandoning the attack. The Valari chased them, cutting down those they caught. Within minutes, the battle was over. Do-hyun stood in the middle of the corridor, surrounded by bodies. His vision was blurring. His legs were shaking. He had lost a lot of blood. Too much blood. Ji-won was at his side in an instant. Captain! You need to sit down. You're going to pass out. Did we win? Yes. We won. Now sit down before you fall down. Do-hyun let her guide him to the floor. He leaned against the wall and closed his eyes. Everything hurt. Everything was red and painful and exhausted, but they had won. Heavy footsteps approached. Do-hyun opened his eyes and saw Commander Neth standing over him. The Valari commander's face was unreadable. You fought, Neth said. You were injured, outnumbered, outmatched, and you fought anyway. That's what humans do. Neth was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, he bent at the waist. It was not a deep bow, but it was a bow. A sign of respect from a Valari warrior to another warrior. I was wrong about you, he said. I called you weak. I called you prey. I was wrong. Do-hyun managed a weak smile. Don't worry about it. Everyone makes mistakes. Neth straightened. You have earned the respect of the Valari military, Captain. Whatever happens next, that will not be forgotten. He turned and walked away, shouting orders to his soldiers. Ji-won knelt beside Do-hyun, already working on his wounds. You're an idiot. You know that? You could have died. But I didn't. That's not the point. Do-hyun laughed, then winced as pain shot through his chest. It's exactly the point. We survived. We proved ourselves. That's all that matters. Ji-won shook her head, but she was smiling. Stupid, stubborn humans. The best kind. The throne chamber was full again. Every noble, every officer, every important Valari on the ship had gathered to witness what was about to happen. The blue lights shone softly on their crystalline shells, creating a sea of glittering figures. At the center of the chamber stood the 4 humans. Do-hyun's wounds had been treated, but he would carry the scars for the rest of his life. His arm was still bandaged, and new cuts crossed his chest and back. He stood straight anyway, ignoring the pain that hummed through his body. Beside him stood Taewoo, Yoonji, and Ji-won, all of them bearing marks from the battle. They had fought. They had bled. They had won. Queen Sarath sat on her throne, looking down at them. Her expression was thoughtful, almost gentle. very different from the cold contempt she had shown when they first met. 3 weeks ago, she began, her voice carrying through the silent chamber, I encountered a species I had never seen before. A species with soft skin and fragile bodies. A species that bled red and felt pain without dying. I looked at them and saw weakness. I looked at them and saw prey. She paused, letting her words sink in. I was wrong. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Queen Sereth raised her hand, and silence returned. I have ruled the Valari Empire for 300 years. In that time, I have seen many species. Strong ones, weak ones, clever ones, foolish ones. I thought I understood what makes a species worthy of respect. I thought I knew what strength looked like. She stood from her throne and walked down the steps toward the humans. Each footstep echoed in the quiet. Strength is not armor. Strength is not speed or size or natural weapons. Strength is what you do when everything is against you. Strength is getting up when you should stay down. Strength is bleeding and fighting and refusing to die. She stopped in front of Do-hyun and looked into his eyes. You are wounded, scarred, damaged. By our standards, you should be broken. But you are not broken. You are standing here, in front of me, with your head held high. You fought against the scorn when you could have hidden. You killed their leader with one working arm and a body full of wounds. She reached out and touched the bandage on his arm, the same wound she had called impossible just days before. You are not weak, Captain Kang Do-hyun. You are something we have never encountered. You are creatures who thrive on damage, who turn pain into power, who refuse to break no matter what the universe throws at them. She turned to address the entire chamber. The humans have proven themselves. They fought beside our soldiers. They bled with us. They saved Valari lives at the cost of their own blood. This cannot be ignored. This must be honored. Commander Neth stepped forward. His face was serious, but there was no hostility in his eyes anymore. You may. Neth turned to face the assembly. Many of you know that I opposed the humans. I called them prey. I said they were unworthy of our attention. I advised the queen to study them and discard them. He paused and looked at Do-hyun. I was a fool. These humans are not prey. They are predators of a kind we have never seen. They do not hunt with claws or speed. They hunt with will. They do not fight with armor or strength. They fight with stubbornness. They are slow, weak, fragile, and they are absolutely terrifying. He bowed to Do-hyun, a deep and formal bow. I apologize for my words, Captain. You have earned the respect of every warrior on this ship, including me. Do-hyun bowed in return. Thank you, Commander. I hope this is the beginning of a new understanding between our peoples. Queen Sereth smiled. It was a small smile, but it was real. It will be more than understanding, she said. Today, I offer humanity a formal alliance with the Valari Empire. Not as subjects, not as servants, as equals. The chamber erupted in murmurs. Some Valari looked shocked. Others looked thoughtful. A few looked genuinely pleased. This alliance will be built on mutual respect, the Queen continued. We will share knowledge, technology, and resources. We will defend each other against common enemies. We will learn from each other's strengths. She turned back to Do-hyun. What do you say, Captain? Will humanity accept our offer? Do-hyun looked at his crew. Taewoo gave a small nod. Eunji smiled through tears. Ji-won squeezed his hand. Your Majesty, Do-hyun said. Humanity has always dreamed of reaching the stars. We have always wondered if we were alone in the universe. Now, we know we are not alone. And we know that even among the stars, we have friends. He stepped forward and extended his hand. The gesture was strange to the Valari, but Queen Sereth understood. She reached out and took his hand in hers. Humanity accepts your alliance, Do-hyun said. Together, We will be stronger than we ever were apart. Queen Serath squeezed his hand gently. Together, she agreed. Against whatever the universe throws at us. Healer Vin stepped forward, bowing to both the Queen and Do-hyun. Your Majesty, Captain, I have a request. I wish to study human biology further. Not as specimens, but as partners. I believe there is much we can learn from each other. Human medicine is primitive by our standards, but their approach to healing, their acceptance of damage and recovery, it could revolutionize how we think about survival. Do-hyun looked at Ji-won, who nodded eagerly. We would be honored to work with you, Healer Vin. I think we have a lot to teach each other. Vin's face lit up with excitement. Thank you. This is a great day for science. Wait! The formal ceremony ended. But the humans remained in the throne chamber for hours afterward. Valari nobles approached them, curious and cautious. They asked questions about Earth, about human history, about the strange way humans lived with pain and damage. Yoonji told them about human art and music. Taewoo told them about human wars and sports. Ji-won told them about human medicine and the miracle of surgery. And Do-hyun told them about human spirit. The thing that could not be measured or scanned. The thing that made humans keep going when everything said they should stop. As the crowd finally began to thin, Queen Serath approached Do-hyun one last time. She looked at his scarred arm, then at his face. That wound will mark you forever, she said. Do-hyun looked at his arm and smiled. The pain was still there, a constant reminder of what had happened. But it was not a burden anymore. It was a badge. I know, he said. Glad? Most species would mourn such damage. Scars are stories, Do-hyun said. This one says that I saved a friend, that I survived when I should have died, that I proved myself to a queen who thought I was worthless. He met her eyes. I'm proud of this scar. I'll wear it for the rest of my life, and never regret it. Queen Serath studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. The galaxy fears those who cannot be broken, she said. Empires fall when they face enemies who refuse to surrender. For thousands of years, the Valari have been strong because our shells protected us. She placed her hand on his shoulder. Now I understand, Captain. Humans were never meant to be broken. You were meant to bend, to bleed, to suffer, and to come back stronger every time. That is why you are dangerous. That is why you are worthy. Do-hyun felt warmth spread through his chest. Not from pain, but from pride. Thank you, Your Majesty. Thank you, Captain, for teaching an old queen that she still has much to learn. She turned and walked back to her throne, her steps lighter than before. Do-hyun watched her go, then looked out the great window at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth. Home. Family. Friends who had no idea what had happened out here in the dark. He would return to them someday. He would tell them this story. The story of how humans, soft and fragile and weak, had earned the respect of an empire. And he would show them his scars and smile, because that was what it meant to be human. To hurt, to survive, to never give up, no matter what.